Yep, all
Okay,
share, all good.
we are live. We are recording. Where everything's good to go. Let's just get right into it because we got a lot to cover today.
Do we though?
It's like I did we do because I went overboard. So this is
I'm
gonna be
so excited.
this is gonna be all over the place as an episode, emotionally. So it's
I'm
got
ready. I'm ready for the roller
I,
coaster.
I could
Take me
describe
on
the
that
show.
ride.
I could describe the show right now, and it would sound like a Stefan bit. We've got everything. We've got Pepsi. We've got Ryan Reynolds in musical numbers. We have mermaids.
I'm so excited for the mermaids. You keep teasing the
Yeah,
mermaids.
yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Good.
Let's just get right into it.
All right.
Hey everybody, welcome to You Have to Watch This podcast. I'm Alan,
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Devin.
and today we are pleased to be joined by our friend from the Victims and Villains podcast and nonprofit Victims and Villains, Josh Berkey. Josh, thank you
Hello.
for coming.
Yeah, what's up, guys?
Hey,
Hey,
so
thanks for coming, man.
yeah, it kind of
Floyd from London.
yeah, uh, it kind of worked out nicely that you were able to join us for today, and we were able to do this episode today because today is Giving Tuesday, so we were helping victims raise funds for their nonprofit. So, Josh, you want to tell us a little bit about what you do at Victims and Villains?
Yeah, so I am. So Victims and Villains as a whole we are a multimedia nonprofit that basically creates content through podcasts, movie reviews, press coverage, simply to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health and to put educational resources and like suicide prevention and like other types of resources into the hands of people that we're talking to, interviewing, and more. But we basically use fandoms as a way to talk to people about how their fandoms connect to mental health and use it as a bridge to bring in deeper conversations.
I'm lucky enough to be part of Victims and Villains, part of the crew there, and we've done a lot of cool things and talked to a lot of cool people with a lot of the things that Victims has done. Just with me in the past, we helped with the as a show. You Have to Watch This podcast was one of the sponsors of the first film festival that Victims hosted this past spring. And we will probably be doing that again. I think was the consensus.
Yeah,
Was that?
I'm
Yeah.
sure we will.
Yes.
I'd
But
be upset if we didn't.
we just personally, I know I've gotten to meet a lot of cool people through Victims. Not just Josh, but also other Josh who's been on the show. But also, like we've gotten to sit down with some celebrities at some events we've gone to and talk about mental health and hear their stories. The saxophone player from the Lost Boys had a very fascinating story that I tried to listen to, but I was so distracted by his oily arms.
So much oil.
So much oil.
Hold on. Why were his arms oily?
Have you seen the Lost Boys?
No.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
kind of
man.
his signature, dude. How?
Yeah.
All right.
Love
just
a good
just
time.
when you get done, just look up Lost Boys saxophone scene and you'll understand. A little
No,
bit better.
no, don't do that because he's gonna think that the whole plot surrounds him for some reason.
That it's a musical or something around Oily Arms Man.
It might be. You know,
It
No,
might be.
I'll never
not.
know.
It's not. Don't do this. Moving on.
please.
Moving
Please do this.
Yeah. So Josh, what are some of the things that Victims is raising money for right now?
So our primary focus for Giving Tuesday this year is to raise money for not only some of our nonprofit costs, but also our events for next year as far as traveling and food goes, because it takes a lot of money to do some of the things that we do, and so that's basically we're kind of offsetting some of our expenses for next year, to be able to continue to get mental health resources into film festivals, conventions, churches, and hopefully after school programs as well next year.
Awesome. For some reason, our chat commands are not working. So give me a second here. I'm going to share the link in our Twitch chat. Yeah,
I
for some
literally
reason,
have it open now so I can donate the
Yes.
second the link gets there.
yeah, so it is in our Twitch chat. I'm going to share it to our Facebook chat as well.
What does the high ground command mean?
It's supposed to say you have the it's over. You have to watch this podcast, and that's how I test it usually, and it works. But
By the way, I love the picture that you chose for this, the little Groot. Well done.
Oh, thank you. I I was like,
All
what's something that's nerdy and something that also captures the heart of this campaign that we're doing this Tuesday?
It's
Yeah.
right in that intersection. It's perfect.
Baby Groot. And I was like, yes.
Got one.
Okay. So the link is in our Facebook and Twitch chats. So if you want to donate there, if you're listening to the podcast, it'll also be in the show notes. So even if it's past Tuesday, feel free to donate. The money will help us do a lot of fun and exciting things with Victims in the future. Just coming up, I believe we're doing Creature Feature again in March. Is that?
Very
So
nice.
hopefully we'll be getting an interview with
Doug Jones.
Doug Jones. So, and if you haven't, go ahead and follow Victims and Villains on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch occasionally.
Yeah, we might be. I don't know. We're figuring out Twitch is kind
So-
of
so-
our
subscribe
our
to
thing
you.
for
Subscribe to the YouTube. regardless.
2023.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to plug this out there too, like if just in case you guys believe in the mission, want to support us in terms of like a financially once a month instead of just a one-time donation, consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/victims and villains.
I know the host of the Patreon podcast, and he's pretty.
I
cool.
do too.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy, and I think it's me.
He's all right.
It's me. And we have some fun things that were planned for November that got pushed back because of illnesses, but we have a lot of fun on there talking about movies that don't get a lot of attention that they probably should or maybe shouldn't get.
Yeah.
So a lot of B movies. I know Devin and Ryan were on a few months ago talking about Yoga Hosers with me. So
A delight.
a lot of fun things happening there on Patreon. So yes, check that out as well. But without further ado, I want to get into the first part of our show before we get into the Power Rangers-ness of it all, and briefly go over our segment. We watch this, where we talk about things that we watched over the past week that we want to share with everyone and give our brief opinions on and try to convince everyone else to watch them. So Josh, since you're the guest, we're going to let you go first and talk about what you watched.
So I watched a documentary, well, I guess it's a docu-series on Netflix called Pepsi, Where's My Jet? Basically, the premise of this docu-series is about when Pepsi ran their like Drink Pepsi, Get Swag campaign. I don't know if that's the exact term it's called, but basically like you could like drink Pepsi and then like get like hats, sunglasses. Well, so to advertise for it, what they did is they said for 70, I think it was 7 million points, you could have a Harrier jet. And so it tells the story of this kid that actually like took it to court, like got like 5 years back and forth, and they basically tried to sue Pepsi to get this Harrier jet because Pepsi thought they were joking. There was like no fine print about this. It's a really awesome underdog story. It's a really fascinating piece on how the strangeness of life connects people together that normally would be connected together. And it's just a really crazy story that I don't remember happening from the 90s, but my wife and I, we sat down and watched one episode Saturday night, and we were just enthralled. We watched it all in one sitting. It's like 2 hours and some change. It's a solid watch though.
I saw the first episode of this. The editing in it is phenomenal. The story is
So
really
good.
Oh, it's so good. And I have to ask, not to spoil it, but was the Harrier jet the friends we made along the way? Is that how this ends?
Kind of. Kind of.
I may not finish it. Oh, I'll
It's
finish it. It's fun.
I will say that the like I was kind of like it's really good up to like the last like 15-20 minutes of like the last episode.
Okay.
But other than that, it's a really solid watch.
I mean, I'm having fun with it.
That's good.
I think you'll enjoy it then.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, you also had something on Netflix.
Yes. Inside Job, the animated show that's on Netflix, came out with part 2, basically season 2, but they call them parts. So last season was part 1. And it last year I talked about it after part 1 came out. The show is basically, let's take a bunch of conspiracy theories and have the deep state be a real thing and make fun of it. And it is a show that is purpose built for me and my humor. And this season takes it even further. And I would have to say that episode 5 of season 2 is an episode of this show that I would have personally written.
That's amazing.
So if anyone is even remotely interested in this show and wants to know a bit about like how I feel about some things, episode 5 of season 2 of Inside Job. It is amazing, but it's only 8 episodes for the season. I've already finished it in 2 days. And it's set up for a season 3, and I cannot wait.
Can I hop in just on that episode? Because I want to know how you feel about some things, but I don't want to talk to you.
Honestly, just yeah, I mean, you can just know that you're like a season and a half into the show,
The
so
character
there's
development and plot and
yeah, so like
Okay.
you're just gonna have to kind of take the characters for who they are in that episode.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's great. They actually so in the first season, it's more just the main characters like deep state corporation that they work for, and they touch at like the lizard people and like the Illuminati and like some other like global things. This season, they've added in the Insane Clown Posse fan base as part of the organizations that rule the world. And they have the Illuminati are more of a thing this season. In fact, the main character and a Illuminati employee spark up a relationship that almost made me cry at the end of the season. How that ended, to be honest.
Wow.
It's a really good show overall. But like I said, episode 5, season 2. As far as I'm concerned, that's the highlight of this entire show.
Okay. Breaking away from Netflix a little bit. Devin, you said you watched some things.
I did.
Going over to Apple TV Plus, you watched Spirited.
I did watch Spirited. It looks like I'm not alone in watching Spirited either.
Well, I know Josh Josh has a story about seeing Spirited.
Hold on. You have to tell me your story about watching Spirited before I say anything about it.
Yeah, so Regal, I don't know if they do this over in London. Regal, every couple months they'll do this thing called Mystery Movie Monday, where you pay $5. They don't tell you what it is. They don't advertise it. You just go in completely blind. And I was sure that it was going to be the Fablesman. So like I was telling Alan about this, and I was like, I think I'm gonna go see this, and it ended up actually being Spirited.
What a difference.
They gave the wrong run time to overthrow people in the app.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got to see this on the big screen. It was a lot of fun.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, so that's it. This is a lot of fun. So basically what this is it's the standard Christmas Carol story of somebody who's been just the worst being visited by 3 ghosts, but it's told from the perspective of the ghosts. and the ghosts have a whole corporation built around just doing this year on year for a different jerk every single year and redeeming them. And it's such a clever, funny take. I don't know that I could sing to you any of the songs. I think there's one called Good Afternoon. I think I remember that
Hey,
one. That
hey, language.
I'm sorry, this is a family podcast. Uh, but no, it was a lot of fun. And if you just go into it expecting a fun Christmassy movie, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I don't think it was the best. It might not make it my like rotation of yearly Christmas movies, but I don't regret watching it.
What about like every like other Christmas, like a by Christmas like yearly movie?
Yeah.
I think anytime I remember that Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell did that Mia challenge on TikTok, anytime I remember that happening, I'll go back and watch that.
Yeah. So just from looking at this poster, I can't tell which one's which, but Ryan Reynolds is the Scrooge of the story, right? And Will Ferrell's the ghost. Okay, that's what I thought.
From a certain point of view,
Yes, yeah, just put it that way.
Okay.
it's the plot is very cool. Like they put effort into it, and I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next thing on Devin's list is something that I also watched. So we're gonna cross the streams there a little bit and go to Disney Plus, talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Because
I was like,
this is fantastic. I loved every second of this. Devin, what did you think?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was great. I mean, I don't know what happened that like my Saturday was filled with Christmas cheer, but I just needed to watch both of these in a row, and it was so fun. It again, this is another thing where like it's just fun. Don't think about it too hard. It's just fun.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, same.
Yeah, I mean,
I liked. I liked the animation that they brought into this. I thought that was something different that I've never seen James Gunn do before, and I liked that as the flashback because it didn't feel like it undid Yondu's death from Volume 2.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a flashback, so it's not going to. So
True.
it was a fun way to bring back Yondu for one more little thing and pay tribute to the Star Wars Holiday Special with an animated segment.
Was that what that was? Was intentionally paying tribute to that?
I feel like it had to be.
Yeah, fair.
That's how I choose to interpret it. Ryan, what do you have any interest in this at all?
I didn't.
Do you now?
Maybe
Please.
a little.
Okay.
Maybe a little click more than I did before.
Okay. Ryan, what's your opinion of GoBots?
What are GoBots?
They are the Marvel ripoff of the Transformers from the 80s. If you have to ask, never mind. I just thought because you're a child of the 80s, you might know GoBots.
That was a fun part, though. I really did appreciate that.
How do you feel about Kevin Bacon? Because there's a lot of Kevin Bacon.
Okay, that might change things.
Okay. I mean, if
He's
you're
a
looking,
hero.
if you're looking at the poster we have on the screen there, that's Kevin Bacon in the snow globe. So,
Okay.
the whole thing is just Drax and Mantis going to Earth to kidnap Kevin Bacon to give to Peter Quill for Christmas.
I think it's the most screen time we've ever had for Mantis. Did you
Did
you guys like that?
I feel like being an outsider of not seeing this. I feel like the only reason why they brought Kevin Bacon into it, granted, I get it, Quill, 80s, how old he is, them going back and getting him, makes total sense. But I feel like Disney wanted to make sure that the whole cast fit into the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever.
No.
5. I feel like that's why they did this.
They
to
all
make sure
really
that
care.
the
They
whole
are-
cast is connected.
They all already did because Kevin Bacon's been in other James Gunn's things like Super, and there's a lot of crossover there with. So yeah, I don't think James Gunn is looking at casting like, you know what, we're gonna help the Kevin Bacon game and add him to the MCU.
I wasn't being serious. That was my attempt at a joke, and you're just sticking pins in it. You're just sticking.
Yes.
Fine, I laughed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. It's worth checking out. Check out Victims and Villains eventually for my full thoughts with Josh, my fellow Marvel correspondent, once we figure out when we're going to record that. And finally, my pick for the week is Wednesday on Netflix that I did not watch on Wednesday. I started on Friday.
Ooh.
But I'm about 5 episodes into this, and it's really fun. It's different. They do a lot of fun things with the Addams Family lore, and they change some things, but for the story they're trying to tell, it works.
I'm a big Addams Family fan. I haven't had the chance to sit down and watch this yet, but from what I've like seen from like TikTokers and like other YouTubers, they say that it's kind of has this like Harry Potter almost quality to it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because she goes off to like a school for misfits, and misfits in this world means like werewolves and sirens and
weird.
Medusa, whatever Medusa was, like snake hair things.
She a Gorgon?
Yeah, just say Medusa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, so the one thing they do change is like Wednesday starts getting visions, which is like visions of the future, which is something that isn't really in lore, but at the same time, Addams Family like they have thing that just walks around with no explanation. So there's always been a little bit of a supernatural element to the Addams Family. They just haven't really explored it that much, and this one plays with that a little bit.
But they've also never had her age past like 12.
Exactly.
So this is also the first time that they're like, oh hey, like, you know, maybe she's like she is supernatural. So like that's interesting. I'm curious to watch it now.
Tim Burton's behind it, along with the creators of Smallville. So as soon as I saw their names on this, like, okay, I'm in. But it's like a better version of Riverdale. Or whatever Riverdale has become. Like there's that teenage melodrama, but there's also a good mystery at the heart of it. Christina Ricci's in this, not playing Wednesday Addams, but it's nice to have her there just to like support the passing of the torch. I want to make sure I get the actress's name right before I say it. But the actress who plays Wednesday does
Jenna
a really
Ortega.
That's what I thought. Jenna Ortega does a great job of playing the character. It's the same way, like personality wise, she's the same Wednesday Addams you always know. She has a moment in here that the internet is like loving, where she does a whole dance number that she choreographed by herself, and it's phenomenal. It's very well done. So you haven't seen the show, but you saw that.
Look, someone took the chorus of My Chemical Romance's Helena and dubbed it over that scene, and
Of
it's
course they did.
fantastic.
You have to send that to me after the show because I want to see that.
Let me see if I can find it.
But yeah, it's the best thing Tim Burton's done in a long time. So, which isn't saying much, but hey, it's a win for Tim Burton. So,
I didn't realize that that the creators behind Smallville were in it. Now I kind of really want to watch it.
They are the executive producers on it. So, along with Tim Burton, so it has that small town feel that Smallville has, and like they do a good job of balancing the characters. So even the side characters get some development outside of just Wednesday. So
now, I also want to throw this out there because I feel like Devin would appreciate this. Uncle Fester in this show is played by Fred Armisen.
Oh, yep. All right, sold. You got me back. I'm going on a roller coaster with this because I was like, oh, Wednesday, it's a good show. I'm like, I'll watch it. And then you're like, yeah, but she goes to a magic school. And I'm like, I'm not watching it.
Catherine Zeta,
like, yeah, but it's fun. And I'm like, I'll watch it. And you're like, but it's like Riverdale. I'm like, I'm not watching it.
Morticia is played back on. Morticia is played by Catherine Zeta-Jones.
All right, back.
And Gomez is played by Louise Guzman.
Aww. Are they in it a lot if she goes to magic school?
They have a full episode where they come back for Parents Weekend. They're in the first episode and then they come back a few episodes later.
That's fun. Okay.
And there's a lot of Thing. I've seen a lot of behind the scenes pictures of how they did Thing, and it's very interesting. Okay. Because it's just a guy. It's just like a guy sitting on a skateboard, like moving his hand across the floor in like a blue suit, so they can chroma key him out. It's amazing.
Wow.
Because it's not often that I'm like, appreciating a special effect so much where I'm like, I really want to know what it was like behind the scenes. And then I saw like Netflix themselves have shared the behind the scenes pics of Thing, and they're wonderful. So,
That's cool.
yeah. On that note, let's get into today's main topic, Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. Now, before we get into this too much, we do have Josh here for Giving Tuesday. So if you're just joining us, we are raising money today for Victims and Villains, a nonprofit that promotes mental health and suicide prevention through pop culture. And the reason we are doing that today is because of the passing of Jason David Frank, better known as Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger, the White Ranger, the Red Ranger, the Red Turbo Ranger, and Black Dino Thunder, but we don't need to talk about that. Jason David Frank committed suicide 2 weeks ago. And I wanted to have this conversation today on Giving Tuesday to help, not only help raise funds for victims and villains, but also just have a conversation about mental health. Because this celebrity death in particular has hit me pretty hard. And I think it's because of the suicide angle of everything. Suicide is 100%, all deaths by suicide are 100% preventable. It is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And if you or anyone you love is struggling, reach out to anyone, friends, family. Dial, if you're in the United States, dial 988. Visit Victims and Villains. We'd much rather reach out to us. We'd much rather have you here than hear that you're not here anymore. Anyone else have anything to say?
I just out of curiosity, has like anyone else on the call like actually lost anyone to suicide?
To remain to have a sense of anonymity here, a family member of mine once every couple of years tries or attempts suicide, and it's always incredibly heartbreaking, to the point where that person's been in and out of the hospital, in and out of institutions for it, and it's so heartbreaking because it's what you had mentioned, Alan, where it's preventable, and it's it's something that you can't help but, at least from this end, feel like, well, what didn't I do, and what am I not providing? So it affects every single person in your life, and it's never the answer, and it's so heartbreaking to hear it continually cropping up. So I mean, just knowing that resources are out there. If you're in the UK, by the way, the hotline is 116123, for suicide prevention. Please reach out and talk to somebody. I mean, especially the person that I know, is what happens is they wall themselves off for a couple of months. They get in their own head. They won't reach out. They won't talk to anybody. And sometimes, I heard that one time I literally called this person while they were in a position to do something very drastic, and they said that my call was the one thing that stopped them from doing it.
Mm.
So it's something that's important. Please reach out. Please talk to somebody.
So the reason that I bring it up is because that's how I got started in doing mental health advocacy. Was I actually lost a friend to suicide.
Oh, wow.
And Alan, what you had talked about with celebrity deaths, like I feel like they hit hard, like already. Like if you're a fan of that person's work, like I was devastated when Wes Craven died. It earlier this month we lost Kevin Conroy. It hit hard. But when you have deaths along the lines of Jason David Frank, Chester Bennington, Robin Williams, etc., those deaths hit harder because it's suicide. Losing someone to suicide is one of the worst feelings that you can ever do, especially if you're like, if you know the person and you're like, man, like what could I've said, like what could I've done differently, should I have like made more of an effort to like text or call. You really start questioning your relationship with that person and like the motivation that you've had. And Devin, you bring up like you bring up the subject of attempted suicide. We talk a lot about just to kind of put this in perspective of like why something like Victims and Villains is needed. Um, uh, as in the year 2020, there were 45,979 deaths that occurred. That boils down to roughly 125 suicides a day.
Oh.
And for every successful suicide that takes place, there are 26 more being attempted. Um, every 4% of every 4% of adults here in America have reported having suicidal thoughts, and as Alan said, suicide is 100% preventable. There are resources out there, and the resources are not just broad, like the suicide prevention hotline, but um, they are specialized resources like the Trevor Project for the LGBTQIA plus community, the Veterans Hotline for veterans to talk to other veterans, and resources for individuals that are going through uh, the trans lifeline is 1-877-656-8860. Teenagers, the teenage suicide hotline is 1-800-852-8336. There's a postpartum depression hotline for 1-800-944-4773. And there's so much more on the Victims and Villains website. It's victimsandvillains.net/hope, where you guys can find all of these resources, education, and more.
Yeah, and if you can, I know we're like on the brink of a recession, but if you have the means to donate, please do. It will help us get not only resources to people, but also have the conversations about mental health with celebrities. In the back of my mind, I always like Jason David Frank was one of the gets I wanted to do at a convention with you, Josh, and it breaks my heart that we'll never get to. I'll never. He's one of the Rangers I'll never get to meet. I met blue, red, black, and yellow, but I'll never get to meet the green and white Ranger. So here's hoping I'll still get to meet the Pink Ranger someday.
I have met the Pink Ranger, and it is from this movie. She's a sweetheart. Catherine Sutherland is absolute treasure.
Not my Pink Ranger though. We'll get into that. But yeah, so putting that aside, Ryan, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
You guys covered it.
Okay.
Pretty well. I mean, I personally, the closest this has ever affected me was someone that was in my graduating class back when I was a sophomore in high school. I didn't know the kid. Unfortunately, I didn't know him, but fortunately, that's the only connection I have with this so far. And I say so far because it's something that we're going to continue to fight. It's something that's probably going to be something that we're going to be fighting for a long time. And yeah, it's something that it's one of those topics that even though some people probably don't want to hear it, it needs to be talked about more.
Yeah. And that's why we're here. All right, so let's get into the show proper. Today we are talking about Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. And if you listen to our Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie episode from a few months ago, I teased this very heavily because there's a lot that I wanted to talk about this. So now that we've have most of the serious conversation out of the way, and I want to spend time treating this as a regular episode and a tribute to the late Jason David Frank. So this is a movie that I grew up with. I watched Power Rangers from Mighty Morphin through about halfway through Lost Galaxy. So up until like 2000, I was watching Power Rangers. So I remember seeing Turbo, a Power Rangers movie in theaters. Ryan and Josh, I know you had both seen this. Devin, you had not. Josh, what's your history with Turbo, a Power Rangers movie?
Oh, I saw this in theaters. This was probably one of the first movies I walked out of in theaters because for some reason, it's nothing about the quality. For some reason, the Phantom, like when they get on the boat, like that sequence with the monsters. For some reason, it just freaked me out. So I was like, Dad, I can't be here anymore. Like, it's just too weird, it's too scary. Let's go. And then I rewatched this as an adult, and I was like, man, don't do drugs.
Right, Ryan. I know you. Last week we were talking about this a little bit, and you were looking up photos from this. You're like, oh my god, it's this movie.
Yeah.
What is your history with Turbo, a Power Rangers movie?
I had the option of seeing it in theaters, but I was at the age where I was like, even though I was at like, I had the option of seeing this movie. But unfortunately, I was at the age where it was one of those things where it's like I would secretly watch it but not tell anyone because I didn't want to tell anyone I was still watching Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
So I bypassed the opportunity to actually see it in theaters, but I got the VHS as soon as it came out. And I remember watching this not as much as the first one, not as much as the first movie,
Mm-hmm.
but enough that I would be driving, that my dad would be driving, I'd be in the back seat, and I would point out cars and go, that one looks like this one looks like that one, to like to the different Zords. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Now, Devin, give us, for anyone who's catching up at home, give us
great.
a brief overview of your history with the Power Rangers.
Okay, so first off, as a lad, I loved the Power Rangers. The original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They were my jam. Every single time I would watch an episode, it would get me so jazzed. I would run over to my little sister and punch her, or like kick her, or do something that I saw the Power Rangers do on the screen. I was so pumped. My parents, seeing this as my reaction, bought me a big inflatable Power Ranger thing and told me, okay, after you watch Power Rangers, that's what you go hit. And it didn't work. It didn't move like the right way or whatever. So I eventually got banned from watching Power Rangers completely. I never. You were the same?
Oh yeah.
For the same reason?
Yes.
That's amazing. So for that reason, I never got to Turbo. I never watched anything. I never watched the original movie. All I watched was like a few episodes on TV a couple of times, and that's it. I was aware vaguely that the Power Rangers change into different looking Power Rangers. I know that like there's a Japan only exclusive version of them where they're train Power Rangers. And I know that like there's dinosaur versions of them, but like I didn't know anything about Turbo at all going into this.
Okay. So that leads me to my next question for you, Devin. Since this was your first time watching it, what did you think of
What did
Turbo?
I watch? What was this movie? Hold on. Hold on. It opens
Don't do drugs.
It opens with a Star Wars text crawl, which like fine, you got to give us exposition somehow, and then it starts in like Middle Earth, and there's like I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for like the whole intro sequence, and then like, all right, these are my like final distilled thoughts here. The first movie did everything it could to convince you that the Power Rangers are actually cool guys. We got all this licensed music. Look at them diving out of an airplane. And this one, their introduction is, oh, look, the blue one broke his back somehow. Don't question the physics.
The power did not protect Rocky's spine.
He landed on his back flying out of a ring. How do you
After completing a roundhouse kick.
I'm with Ryan.
No, it didn't make any sense. He like completed a roundhouse kick and then was 8 feet to the right on the floor somehow.
No. He jumped to kick and missed, went over the ropes and landed on his back. I'm sorry, but you're going to be very prone to back injury if you land on your back outside of a pro wrestling style ring, which is what that was.
Okay, that's fair. But how they choose to frame these kids in this movie is look at how fragile and stupid they are. Not look at them diving out of an airplane.
Well, I mean, they're showing that they're human outside of their suits.
True that. I also want to throw this out there as well that your opening crawl comment, and I just watched Mighty Morphin on Friday night because we did a watch party over on our Discord,
Oh yeah.
and that opens up on that Mighty Morphin opens up on a crawl too.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
I
It's-
forgot about the crawl.
It's not even a crawl. Like, it doesn't even crawl. It's just text on screen with
Yeah, fair.
the alien woman who protects the ninja Zords
Yeah.
talking. It's not even
Yeah, I wish I
Zordon.
could remember her name.
Who was
Dul-
narrating this one?
Dulcea? It was Zordon. It was
Yeah,
Zordon.
Dulcea.
Zordon narrates this one though.
I'm happy you know
Yeah.
the names of these people, Alan. This makes me. This is why I'm so
This
happy to
is
be
his
talking
thing.
to you about this. I know. I love
This
it.
is his thing. It's just like if we do the Ninja Turtles, I'm the one we talk to. I'm the one we
Good.
talk.
Yeah, so there is a big difference in style here from the first movie, because the main difference between this movie and the first one is this one is in continuity to the show. The other one is not.
Okay.
The other one takes place in its own universe for reasons. And that's part of the reason you'll never see Ivan Ooze in anything Power Rangers again, is because technically he's owned by Disney now.
Yeah.
'Cause
Are you gonna? I was gonna ask. Are you gonna talk about how they basically did a low budget reboot of the movie in the show to fit it into continuity?
What?
for the first one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the first one. Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about that so much. So, but yeah, the first one they retold the story of them getting the Ninja Zords in the show. So you can, like, the movie itself is not continuity. So they have to go out and find Ninjor and get the Ninja Zords through him, and it's a whole nother thing. So you get to see them get the Ninja Zords twice if you watch the movie and the show.
And it's not Ivan
Okay.
Ooze. It's like Frederick Goop or something.
It's not even
Frederick Coop.
Ivan Ooze doesn't even exist. They're still fighting Rita and Zed at that point.
So hold on. Okay, y'all have to slow down with me for a second.
Yes.
This wasn't Rita in this movie.
No.
Are
No,
we
that was
sure?
What?
Re-
Yes.
well-
Whoa.
Whoa.
Makes a cameo.
Yeah, Rita has a
She
cameo.
makes a cameo.
How did I miss the Rita cameo?
So
The-
Diva Talks calls her and says, "Hey, like, how am I supposed to handle the Power Rangers?" And she's like, "Oh, if I knew how to do the Power Rangers, do you think I would be listening to this?" And then like goes
Yeah.
to a Lord Zed that's
Zed.
snoring and then like has like an
Eye
eyepiece.
mask. Yeah, an eye mask. on.
Why?
Because
Comfort, I
comedy
guess.
in 1996, or I guess it was 97. So, yeah. So no, that was the main villain of this is not Rita Repulsa.
Okay, got it. Because she's like diet Rita Repulsa. Is that weird for me to say? Like, she felt
Look.
very similar.
Look,
Well, I mean, that's all those evil villains were in those shows. They were all over the top, like cartoon characters.
Yeah.
yes. Diva Talks, and I know this is a family friendly show, but I'm just gonna say it. Diva Talks was a sexual awakening for me.
Okay,
Uh,
here. I'll put it this way. When I was watching this time, I figured out why my dad didn't mind me watching these movies so much.
Yeah, her costume was straight up for the dads. Like, there
Oh,
was
100%.
no
Absolutely.
not need to show that much cleavage in her costume. It made no sense for her character.
No,
It was for the
made
dads.
I mean,
perfect sense for her character. What are you talking
Devin,
about?
do me a favor. Look up a
Yes.
picture of Rita Repulsa right now, like from the original show, and tell me what's wrong with her costume, because hers is a little bit more cartoony, but she has issues in that area as well.
Equal as well, yeah.
Yes. As far as
Oh, yeah. She does.
learning things about ourselves in this movie, I will say there's another villain in here, or a brief appearance of a villain, or a brief villainous role in here that I like, and it's we'll get into that later.
Is it Face
Yeah,
Guy?
I know which one you're talking about too.
Yeah. But yeah, so Josh and Ryan, since you guys have rewatched this, what are your opinions of this movie in 2022, outside of the Diva Talks costume stuff?
It's
Gross.
it's honestly about as awkward as as me going back and occasionally watching like the first couple seasons of the Ninja Turtles like 90s show.
Mhm.
Like there are times when I'm watching this, I'm going, hang on a second. Well, what just happened? And I'll rewind it. And I'll go, well, that was a big jump of that was a big jump in logic. I'll just go with it. Okay. I mean, it's a decent kids movie from the mid 90s.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much how I took it. Again, don't do drugs. I totally agree with that statement for this movie.
I rewatched this movie a few years ago because like I did a deep dive during the Power Rangers, and I hated that, but for this viewing, like something just clicked where I was like, this camp is just on point. It's such a WTF moment that I'm like, this is why I loved the 90s and the early 2000s, because like you never know what you were gonna get. And like Ryan just said, like this is an adequate kids movie. Like it knows its audience, it knows who it's trying to go for, and it goes all in. Like the actress that plays Divatox is campy as heck, and she just absolutely nails every aspect of this character because of that.
I mean, she
Yeah.
knew what she was doing. There was no like questioning. Like, she's not like, I'm gonna play a deeply complex bad guy. She's like, I'm gonna be a cartoon character in human form, and crushes it.
Yeah.
She was like, her and her acting in the villain scenes are like the best part of this movie for me, I think.
Yeah, and I also had a a bit of a connection rewatching it again this time. I'm like, she's familiar. I've seen her I've seen her somewhere else. And Devin, you're gonna find this hysterical. She guest stars or is a character in an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, where she plays a genetically altered human who is extremely intelligent. That's where the alterations took place when during the when she was a kid, but her character is over sexualized, and that's why her character is like in an institution to get help. And so it was really funny when I figured that out, because like, oh, of course she'd be fine wearing that. But still, anyway, to keep on going.
Yeah.
Wow, what a
Apparently,
connection.
so here's another connection for you too. So her name, the actress's name is actually Hilary Shepard, and she also has she's also done guest like small roles in the Addams Family reunion, which was straight to video shortly after this, and probably her most famous role on her list is 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of the cast, in additions to the cast, I want to talk a bit about Justin, the Blue Ranger.
The new one?
Yes. Well, before we get into that, Devin, did you find the pictures of Rita I was talking about?
I did. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
That's fair.
okay.
That's annoying.
Yeah. It's more Madonna if Madonna was a monster on Big Mouth.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah. So one thing this movie does that mostly was for, hey, we need kids to stay invested in Power Rangers. Let's make a kid a Power Ranger. So Justin learns the secret identities of the Power Rangers, and Zordon's best reaction to that, he's like, you know what, kid, we got one down. You're gonna fill in for us. And they put Ryan, how old were you when this movie came out in 97?
96?
97.
97. I would have been 13. Turning 13 that June.
Blake Foster, who plays Justin, was born the same year as you. So imagine you
He was 13.
as a Power Ranger.
I was a sickly kid at that point.
And Zordon would have probably put you in anyway. Or he would have found one of your classmates to be your replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing that bothered me, I don't care that you throw a kid in. Fine. I saw it coming from the second he was under the bed. Do the Power Ranger suits make you all the same height?
No.
Yes.
It's like
No.
it-
Yes.
because
No.
it
I mean-
100% did for him.
Apparently, in this one, it does.
Well,
Yeah,
okay. So
exactly.
let's think about what we're talking about here for a second. They have to morph. Okay, so it's not just them
Okay.
putting in a suit; they're morphing into these warriors. So it would make sense that a 13-year-old, when he has, sometimes when he has when I guess if he has the helmet on, he can turn into a full-sized adult.
That
but
would have been hysterical if he would have taken off his helmet and he still had the same little kid head.
he just looks like one of the
Oh.
shrunken heads from Beetlejuice.
Well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
Look.
cut you off there. That's just it's just I had that flash in my head.
F that kid because he lived every one of my fantasies. I'm saying what we're all thinking.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
We all wanted to be the Power Ranger at that
Yeah,
at that stage.
if you watch some of the episodes, and when they do the morph, you'll clearly see, depending on how they do the transition, that the body outline of like those like super tight like costumes, the body type is completely different than what the actors' body types are, and
Yeah.
it's because it's the stuntmen in it. It's the stuntmen and women that are in the costumes, and not even that. Some of the footage in the early show
Mhm.
is straight from the show from Japan. So
Right.
like,
Not even just the early show. They're still doing that to an extent, I think.
What?
okay.
Oh yeah.
I
mean,
didn't know that the
at
show
least-
was still on in Japan.
oh yeah.
that's
Super
why I-
Super
yeah.
Sentai is still going. I don't know how
Okay.
much footage they're still using, but they're using the same costumes and adapting things a lot still. Because I know
Yeah.
a few years ago when they had a super, I think it was Super Mega Force. They had like every team of Power Rangers show up, and they had stuntmen. Like the Japanese version was a lot, and then they tried to recreate it with as many of the American actors as they could, and they got like 12.
Oh.
But Jason David Frank was right there at the front of the line because he
Aw.
was such a big part of this. Like this, Turbo was his last run, last Ranger in the original run that he did. He did come back later as the Black Dino Thunder Ranger, when Tommy Oliver was a paleontologist, archaeologist, something like that.
Yeah.
But here's a lot that I have to talk about with this movie.
I'm so excited. Please,
So
please tell me everything.
before we move on to the movie itself, I want Devin, since you are new to these Power Ranger films, is there
Yes.
anything in this one that you think they did better here than they did in Mighty Morphin movie?
Okay.
Is there anything you think
Not-
they did worse?
Yeah. I'll call out one scene in particular that encapsulates both the things, and for me, that's the Megazord fight.
Okay.
The Megazord fight
Oh.
looks much, much, much better in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
The Megazord design looks much, much, much worse in this movie. The whole
Okay.
time, I was like, he's got such wee little arms. Look at his baby arms.
That's because it's a Honda CRX. I mean,
I
there's
know.
no
Why did you do that?
I mean, like, there's no way to make a Honda CRX any bigger than what it already is.
Oh.
Now, Ryan, you told
Yes.
me you did some research on the Zords, and you have their actual vehicle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll do this real quick. So I wanted to look up to see if these cars were based off of like real vehicles or if they were like a construct of like different types. They were all modeled off of individual vehicles. So Red Lightning was a Pontiac Ferrero, those vehicles that were very popular for catching on fire that were made
Oh.
in the late 80s.
Gross.
Which is why I found that one funny because it's like, like Red Lightning, and the model that this thing's based off of actually like 580 of these vehicles that were produced actually caught on fire. The blue one is a Ford F series pickup truck. The minivan is a Chevy Astro van. Dune Star is a Suzuki Ginny SUV. And the Wind Chaser, the Pink Ranger, is a Honda CRX, which is one of my favorite import Honda vehicles. But yeah, so that's what they are. So they're all actually modeled after real vehicles and not just like, hey, this one, we just need one that looks like a sports car. Let's just design a sports car. Like, these are all based off of real vehicles.
Now hold on. As somebody on the outside looking in, talking to three people who lived through this transition from the Power Rangers have cool robots that they run around into. They have cars.
Yeah, so
Was
can we
that
talk about
disappointing?
that for a second? Yeah, because
This is what they had before Turbo.
yeah,
It was a
okay.
giant star. It was just
Yeah.
a giant red star.
Look, for this one, it doesn't make any sense because they set Diva Tox up to be, it's like, oh my goodness, like she's like terrible and like we're all gonna die kind of thing. Like she's the greatest threat we've ever done, and they went from being alien inspired to man-made cars.
Yeah. Was it
Didn't
disappointing
make
to
any
everyone?
sense. Yes, super
Okay.
disappointing about on this viewing.
We will get into this. I have
Just give it to us, bro.
Let's do it. I want it. I want it.
understood the assignment, or misunderstood, and took it in a whole different direction. Okay, so let's deep dive into Turbo Power Rangers movie. So one of the first things that I noticed about this movie when I had it on VHS tape, is there was something in the advertising for this that I never got to see. This is where you guys need you guys need to have the stream up so you can see my visual aids.
Okay, pull it up.
So, I own this on VHS, and there is an image on the back of the VHS case of Tommy and Catherine and a flamethrower. Not in the movie at all.
Wait, but it made the DVD case?
It made the VHS tape, which I have the image of it on the VHS tape.
What?
Yeah.
Is
Wow.
this? Why didn't we get this? This is so much cooler than what
Hold
we actually
on.
got.
It gets better. There's a whole bunch of subplots cut from this movie. This movie was originally like 3 hours long, and they had to cut a lot of the stuff from the script. There's even a scene where when Tommy dives in to save Kat, he wrestles an alligator. which was filmed, and a lot of this made it to the comic book. So I'm going to show you guys a lot of images from the comic book of things that were in an early draft of this movie that were either filmed or cut before they got to production, but made it to the comic book adaptation.
Wow.
So we're in for a ride, guys.
I have it up here. This panel is fantastic.
Oh, it gets better.
Gosh.
So another sequence that was cut was when they get to the volcano, they follow Justin in. There was a whole like Indiana Jones-esque sequence where the Rangers have to get through this temple, and they're all morphed up, and they have to go through this temple and get through all these different traps. And they filmed it because there are production stills of this.
Oh, wow.
But the footage from this has never seen the light of day. All we have are these images to go off of.
Just real quick, how do these particular shots look better than the cinematography that's in the actual movie?
I can tell you why. I can tell you why.
Why?
And I haven't found anything to back this up, but evidently when they filmed this, they filmed it in 4:3 aspect ratio, which is the same aspect ratio you would get if you were watching this on the TV on Fox Kids in the 90s. So what they did to put it on the big screen is blow it up and crop it. So every image that you see, you're only seeing part of. It's kind of like when they take a show like Friends and expand it for Netflix to be in HD. It's the opposite of that. So you're blowing it up and you're cutting off part of the image. My theory is part of the reason we haven't, a lot of these scenes got cut is when they did that, they were unusable. Because you look at something like this, you cut off part of that frame, it's not going to look good. So if they shot it with the intention of it being 4:3 and then you try to make it 16:9, it's not going to look great. So that's just my theory. I cannot back that up.
It makes sense though.
Yeah, it's a good theory.
Because if you look at it, the one that's up now, Alan, just like you said, and you were to crop that, you're losing a limb of one of the Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's an action shot, so you can have them go across, but it's still, it's a like, if I were to make that 16:9, like, actually here I can do it right now. The power of the of
I can't
technology.
wait.
So yeah, 16:9, and then you're gonna blow it up a little bit too, so you're gonna lose. Yeah, it's gonna look something more like that. Which,
And it doesn't look terrible, but I mean, I can.
but you're also gonna
see,
blow it
like,
up, and you're gonna lose a lot of the detail there. So,
It's fair.
so yeah, that's part of what was cut. The movie wasn't always called Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. It was also called Turbo, a Power Rangers Adventure, but it started off its life as Power Rangers Race to the Volcano, which they actually advertised, and I have the image up here. Coming to theaters March 1997 from Saban and Fox, 20th Century Fox.
Wow,
So
that logo looks terrible.
yes.
Oh man.
So I have some concept art from when the movie was still Race to the Volcano. So here is an early version of Diva Talks for you guys. Back when she was named, I forget what her name was. She wasn't always Diva Talks. It was, I have it here somewhere. Darvia.
Oh, what I don't remember the character's name, but there's a character in Mighty Morphin. At least this shot that you're showing us now, like it.
Scorpina.
Torpino. She looks
Scorpina,
like Torpina
yeah.
from this
Scorpina,
side.
yeah.
Yeah,
just a little
that's
bit.
the word.
Any thoughts on this look of Diva Talks? Would you like to see this more than the one that you guys already enjoyed, or?
I mean, it's also clearly still for the dads.
Definitely wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like her costume in the thing. I think a bit more than this. I think I just looked up Scorpina, and you're right. It almost looks like Scorpina.
Yeah, that's probably part of the reason they cut this one. We also have an alternative look for Malachor, the volcano monster that she's trying to marry, which
what a plot, man.
Which looks a lot more like a Power Rangers villain from the 90s than what we got, instead of just a walking lava man.
Oh, yes. Please give me that one.
He looks very cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then everyone's favorite space wizard. Forget Baby Yoda and all that. Before Baby Yoda, there was Larigo. And this is the concept art for Larigo. Which they pretty much got spot on. Like it.
Yeah.
If anything else, he looks more Ewok cartoony in this one. In the concept art. So
mine's a little behind, so I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
There we go.
Yeah.
Ryan loves it.
So one of the
Ew.
biggest complaints I have about this movie as an adult is they don't handle the Zeo powers very well.
Explain to me what that means.
The Zeo powers are between Mighty Morphin and Turbo, there was Power Rangers Zeo. So that's where they had the shape start, the shape zones.
Okay,
and all
got
of
it.
that. And you see Catherine try to morph into Zeo Ranger 1 Pink.
When she goes into the waterfall.
That's the only time they mention the Zeo powers. There was a whole subplot where the Zeo powers are destroyed and trying to rescue who would turn out to be Jason and Kimberly. Or the Adam and Tanya, their suits are damaged and they lose their powers, and then the remaining turbo power or Zeo powers are turned into the turbo powers. There was a whole subplot that got cut when David Yost, who played Billy, left the show because he was supposed to be part of this movie, but he left because of his treatment on the set. He quit the show, and they had to.
I hate that.
It's a whole thing, and I'd like to think that those issues have been addressed because he's returning for the 30th anniversary special.
Good.
A bunch of them are. We'll talk about that then. So the Zeo suits were originally supposed to be in this movie, and there was a whole sequence where Adam and Tanya go to rescue Kimberly and Jason, that was cut. So there's like a whole underwater fight sequence where they get damaged by Divatox's monsters and all of that. That made the comic book, which we have a graphic up here for.
Is that what's on the screen?
Yes, that's what's on the screen now. There was also more underwater sequences with the turbo suits, and they got turbo aqua suits. And I had a picture of all of them together, but it didn't make the transfer over. But here is the turbo Red Ranger aqua suit, which looks
honestly I'm surprised that we didn't get more like underwater stuff with this, because Divatox is essentially an aquatic villain.
Well,
and
yeah,
it just seems like it would go hand in hand a little bit more.
Well, I think they cut a lot of it because they lost the race aspect to it, was kind of trimmed down. And if you look at the movie, there's two scenes where they're in there, like there's two sequences where they're in their turbo suits. It's when they get the powers, and it's the end sequence. The rest of it, they're not Power Rangers. They're just themselves. Like they're not in the suits that
That's
much.
fair. Yeah.
This is the Iron Man 3 of Power Ranger movies.
Yeah, but at least there's multiple suits in the Iron Man 3. Here you only get the ones. And there was some other water stuff that got cut. Mostly being Mandika. Mandika, anyone want to guess who Mandika was that got cut from this?
No, I have no idea.
Mandika was the mermaid who rescued Adam after his powers get damaged, and they have to make the turbo suits, like the turbo powers. There was a mermaid who actually rescued and helped the Power Rangers along on their race. She's the one who helped Kim make it to the beach on the island. So when she wakes up, like she was put there by a mermaid. They filmed sequences with this character, and Johnny Young Bosch has talked about this at conventions and talked about how they filmed this, and there's this whole sequence with him that was cut. So this footage exists. There was a mermaid in Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, and we were deprived of that.
I mean, especially after we brought her up earlier. Like she does the opening narration for the Mighty Morphin movie. What's her name again? Dulcia. Like Dulcia, like putting her character almost feels kind of like the mermaid of that movie, to where like the way that you're describing her, it seems like it would be almost like an exact homage to that, and it just kind of seems like, wow, like what did we do in cutting this?
So I would like to start the release the mermaid cut movement right here, right now.
I'd watch it just to see.
All right, you know what?
Are you doing it? You making it happen?
Hashtag release the mermaid cut.
Yep. Perfect. We're starting something, guys. We're doing it.
Hashtag Turbo Power Rangers.
And then finally, the last thing that we were kind of... Did you guys watch Into the Credits at all? Because there was a little bit after the movie.
Nope, totally missed it.
Okay. There's a little bit of a montage where you have the Turbo Zord rescuing Bulk and Skull and Jason and Kimberly and Larigo and his family. So they're all brought into the Megazord, and like Bulk and Skull and like mess up with the controls. So they're like all going all over the place, and there's a moment there, and then there's another scene where they go back to the command center with Larigo, and there's a scene where Justin gets to hold the little baby, and it's all weird. But the one thing that I noticed, and it plays into my theory that I talked about with Josh before on our tribute to Jason David Frank, is Kimberly and Jason are a couple.
Really?
Yes. Because there's a...
Go ahead.
Okay. So Tommy and Kimberly were the couple for the longest time. Then Kimberly, during Power Rangers Zeo, sends a Dear John letter to Tommy, which still hurts to this day. And then she never says who she says there's somebody else, doesn't say who.
I remember that episode.
Yeah. It scarred us all.
It
scarred us all.
It did.
Yeah.
It really did scar us all. Yeah.
so then Jason comes back to town, talks about this mysterious girlfriend that he has, doesn't go in the details. And then Jason's in the last episode of Power Rangers Zeo. And then all of a sudden he's not in the team anymore, and Turbo happens, and he's just out out diving with Kimberly for no reason at all, which is suspicious. But then their interactions when they're on the Zord together, they're like holding hands and are very close, talking to Tommy. So there is a cut scene where the three of them are talking, and I swear if there's footage out there that says that they're a couple, like I'd be hard pressed to believe it if I did not see the GIF that I saw of them kissing. And I don't.
A GIF of it?
There's a GIF of it, and I don't know if it's from a cut scene or if it's from a blooper or what. But there's footage that exists of this. And I couldn't pull a GIF in for the show, but I'll make sure to find it and post it on our socials. But
it's enough confirmation. You've sold me. I think they're a couple now. Well done.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I also think it's really interesting too that like they show up wearing the colors that they still color coordinate with the rest of the team because like Jason was last seen as they called it the Gold Zeo Ranger, but he was the Black Ranger. Like there was more black than there was gold, so just call for what.
I mean, yeah, but he was the Mr. T of Power Rangers. Like he had so much gold on.
This is true. This is true, but
I think that was the first Power Ranger I cosplayed as. Like I did a cosplay. It was a Halloween. That was my Halloween costume. I had that costume, and I'm mad that I don't have like the belt anymore. Yeah, that's a very cool Ranger. Like I love the Zeo Gold Ranger. I actually think I have the when I pulled out the Zeo toy that I had behind me that fell. I found that one, but it's like missing a leg and all of that. So, but anything else we want to talk about with Turbo, a Power Rangers movie?
Got you. I just have to say that like I hated the point after like Jason and Kimberly like turn evil, and like she turns to Catherine. Kimberly turns to Catherine and says, "Pink is out," while she wears pink. I don't know, just it bugged the ever loving P out of me. So
that scene did not bug me at all.
No,
I have no problem with that scene at all.
Look,
that's all I will say. That is all I will say on the matter.
Blink twice if Anna's in the room.
We got a half blink. I think it was a half blink. There we go.
No, like I mean, I'll admit it. I grew up with a crush on Kim the Pink Ranger, like, but watching this time, I was like, oh wow, like that scene in particular, I was like, okay, like, go get it, girl, like, yeah. Did it feel weird to you that the two of them were just kind of shoehorned into this movie?
I hated it so much.
Okay,
even like even as a kid, I was like, why are they here? Like they just kind of need to let go of the past.
I have an answer
and embrace it.
I have the answer.
Please enlighten me.
Contractual obligations.
Oh,
there it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Austin St. John wasn't in the first movie, but he was still contracted for a movie, so they had to bring him in. And Amy Jo Johnson was contracted for 2 films. So that's why they were in this.
Oh. All right, so let me test your knowledge and ask you this.
Okay.
Why was there never any other movies after this?
I don't know the official answer. I would assume because the franchise lost popularity. Like it wasn't as
sure. But like it's not super long after this. What's it like 2001, 2002 Disney buys it. And I'm surprised like we never got any like movies under the Disney umbrella, even if it was straight to video.
But also well, if you want to talk straight to video, there is a movie. There's the
Is there?
Yeah, give me a second.
Well, wasn't there a newer one?
Of course Alan has it. Of course.
Didn't they
Yes.
reboot it?
Look,
Of course he has
we are gonna complete your experience, Devin, and we're gonna come back. I'm inviting myself back to do that.
No,
the
you need to
2062
come back.
version.
You're in it now. You need to come back. Power
Power
Rangers Space.
Power Rangers in Space, an all new feature length movie. It's the
They're
it's
riding
they
on vacuums.
so Fox Kids Fox Kids did that weird thing where they took several episodes of a TV show and put it on VHS as a movie. And they did that. They did that with this, and I bought it. But it's the Psycho
You buy it
Ranger.
on eBay. Right?
Yeah, it's the Psycho Rangers. So the evil Power Rangers saga from Power Rangers in Space is the third movie, maybe. Not an official movie. It's just episodes of the show, but they did at least market it as a movie. So they did the same thing with Beetleborgs Metallics.
I love Beetleborgs and VR Troopers were two other shows that I never missed.
Oh boy, Ryan, do I have a treat for you then? Have any of you ever heard of Forever Red?
No.
It sounds familiar.
So Forever Red is an episode of which show is it? Wild Force? I think it's Power Rangers Wild Force, where they have every single Red Ranger come back. But that's not why I bring it up. They bring every Red Ranger back to fight the villains from Power Ranger Zeo, which were these robot aliens that are digging up Lord Zed's Zord that is buried on the moon. But they didn't have those suits anymore. But you know what Saban did have? The Beetleborg suits. So the green Beetleborg is one of the villains in Power Rangers Forever Red.
Nice. That is excellent. But
it is worth checking out.
I will. Definitely talking about Zords though. The one of the parts that I rewinded to like make sure I didn't miss something because it just like really like stuff happened really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The creation of the Turbo Zords in this was very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
And was treated as like part of the story compared to how, because I mean, as far as I can remember, or the way that my memory works, it was like every season they got new powers and they got new Zords almost. And again, it was, toys, but still, like they made it a big deal in the storyline, and they made it like like their powers had to change because they came across a new villain, and Zordon needed to he needed to upgrade their stuff, or the Galaxy one, which I think was one of the last episodes I ever saw, was the first episode of like Lost Galaxy. In this, it was just like them pushing buttons and like creating stuff in like a 3D printer. Like it was very, very anticlimactic.
And I think part of that is because they had to cut the Billy stuff. Billy was supposed to be responsible for the creation of these Zords. And I think that's part of the reason the Zords have such a human look to them. Like that's why they're based on cars. Like if you remember all the way back to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, they had a flying car. Don't know why, but they did.
Yeah.
So I think it would make sense for them to eventually get into car-shaped Zords.
Because it was after this they had the like they had the rescue ones where it was like a police car and an ambulance and a fire truck. So like this wasn't the last time they actually used vehicles as Zords.
Yeah, I think Lightspeed Rescue, I think, is what you're talking about.
And and I know that one of the four of us was very upset about how they went from being like magical looking Zords to just vehicles. But
I was very mad, furious. In fact.
I was also a fan of Knight Rider as a kid. And watching the reruns of Knight Rider.
Wonderful.
And they tried to reboot the Knight Rider series in the 90s, but with a group of people. So it was a bunch of different cars. It was like a Jeep Wrangler and a pickup truck and all this other stuff. And so when they show the Zords driving through the desert, I remember now as a kid, I liked it because it reminded me of that show that I was watching with my dad. That was the reboot of the Knight Rider series. But I don't know. I always thought it was interesting that the Zords changed. So to me, it was just, okay, well, this is what they're going to look like here for a little bit.
I think I love the original designs, and think the original designs are so cool. Like even
The
as
saber
like
tooth and
even as like
Yeah.
a 32
Not a
year old,
dinosaur.
show me any one of those things, and I will get so pumped. Like even now, even that helmet you have behind you, Alan, like that's enough. Like I love the original designs. I think they're just wonderful.
well, mine are the original, the helmet that Alan has, and
Yeah.
then the one right after that one, I believe, was the oh crap, what were they called? It was the next change that they did with
The
the
Thunder
like
Zords.
samurai looking Zord.
The Thunder Zords, yeah.
Okay.
From the one season of Super Sentai, they did not fully translate. So the reason they had the look that Devin loves so much for so
Yeah.
long, instead of they changed Zords, but they didn't change looks, is because that look is so iconic. They did it. They were able to adapt as much of Super Sentai into with those suits as they could before it got to the point where, like, okay, it's more cost effective for us to change their costumes and adapt, like use more of the footage from the Japanese show than it would for us to keep using the same look over and over.
Sure.
Yeah, because I remember with using the footage, I remember my mom told me, she was like, "Oh, you know that this is a show in Japan too, right?" And I'm like, "Oh no, it's not." Being a little kid watching the show, thinking I know more about it than my
Oh
mom
yeah,
does.
of course.
It's like, "Oh no, it's not." And then I remember watching it, and then I watched an episode, and they were showing like the street fighting with the Power Rangers all like powered up, and all of the street signs were in Japanese, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
"Oh yeah."
Oh, there it is.
Dang it.
So hold on, Alan. You mentioned there was a hidden bad guy in this that you would bring up later.
Oh, it was Evil
Because-
Kimberly. Evil Kimberly.
Oh, it was that one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
I
was
thought
it.
you were trying to bring up Taka from the Ninja Turtles when they fought him on the boat.
Those
tried.
were
That
the
was-
worst. I forgot about like how badly those things were designed, and
Oh
then
yeah.
and, and then of course the gag with the Green Ranger using its head as like one of those like medicine bag or sandbag things at like a gym, and like his
Yeah.
hands all like goopy. Like it was just it's
It's weird.
horrible.
I mean, I can understand why Josh walked out of it as a child. I get it. I feel for you, man.
Anything else for Turbo Power Rangers movie before we wrap this up?
That's all I got.
Nah.
Okay.
Oh, a statement, not a
Okay.
talking, just a statement. Really weird. Out of all of this, they're on like a wooden sailboat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
weird.
It
Okay,
just felt
that's
like they
it.
wanted to put
a
anything
ghost
they could in
crew.
the movie. Like some kids
That-
will like boats, some will like cars. There's something for everyone.
That takes
a
their
pirate
car
movie.
keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that takes their car keys.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this. I told Ryan this before you guys got on the call. Getting the images into the computer for the show tonight, I felt a little bit like I was shifting in the turbo because I couldn't get the USB drive into the port right. It's like almost there, almost got it.
Oh, good.
All right, I think that does it for our conversation on Power Rangers Turbo. Jason David Frank will be missed. I think his this movie may not be the best, but it is a fun ride, and I think he, not only just him, but everyone in here gave it their all, and I think he did so much for his, not only just the fandom, but just the community in general. We talked about this on the Power Ranger in our tribute we did over on the Victims and Villains YouTube channel. He was a very big supporter of small businesses during COVID and would go to different comic book shops and just host events where he would bring people in to the stories to help support the businesses, support himself, but also just to help those businesses. There were many businesses that probably wouldn't be open today if it wasn't for the Ranger Rescue program that he was running. And outside of the acting, he did a lot with martial arts and had his own schools. And his loss is a great one. It's a great loss, and he will be missed.
Absolutely.
On that note, Again, I can't stress this enough. If you are ever feeling thoughts of suicide or just depressed, please reach out for help. Call 988. Reach out to someone for help, a friend, family. One of the actors who played a young version of the Red Ranger in Mighty Morphin at one point was like, reach out to an old friend today. Hell, reach out to an old enemy. Just know that you're not alone. And one of the places you can reach out is, or find where to reach out is Victims and Villains. And again, if you can, please donate on this Giving Tuesday to help victims, promote mental health and suicide prevention through pop culture at conventions, film festivals, and just in general with podcasting and movie reviews and all of that fun stuff. Josh, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Yeah, absolutely. If because I know that we live in a age where phone calls are scary. If you are struggling, there is a text line as well. It's 741-741, or I believe it's I don't remember the exact websites. I'm not gonna butcher it, but there are a ton of resources at Victims and Villains, and a ton of great conversations that we have as well. So whether you're a fan of horror, anime, or Marvel, we have a little bit of everything for you. But mostly, we just do it because we want you to know that you're not alone and that you have value.
And I know this is a rough time of the year, and I talk about that in a review that is coming to Victims and Villains later this week. This time of year is rough for a lot of people, and if you're struggling this time of year, you're not alone. A lot of people are, and it's very easy to feel alone, especially with all of the holiday festivities going on. Now that that's pretty much in full swing, and people left their turkey bones out for Mariah Carey. But you are not alone. Yeah, that's all I've. In the words of Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that. Devin, Ryan, anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, just never be afraid to reach out. I know it takes a lot sometimes, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, it can't say it better.
Okay. Ryan, I know we had discussed what your pick for next week was going to be, but I messed up the timelines, and you don't have to do that thing if you don't want to. So do you know what you want to make us watch next week?
I'm coinciding my words with finger taps, so just give me 1 second to get to my list. Movies.
A little peek behind the curtain. We were supposed to do Willow tonight, but we shifted that around because I figured this was a more important conversation than Warwick Davis and Val Kilmer. But
oh, true. So I'm gonna go completely out of left field here with this one. Makes no sense with anything or a theme. But I think it's about time. And granted, this is the first pick. It may change before next week. It all depends on accessibility. Okay. Devin, it's about time you've seen the movie Money Pit.
Oh, fun. Okay.
So
I'm on board. Great.
The Money Pit with Tom Hanks?
Yes.
Fun fact. I've never seen that either.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I may have seen bits and pieces of it, but I've never seen the whole thing. So
I've never even heard of this movie.
Okay, so The Money Pit is my all-time go-to movie for Tom Hanks.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that next week. I'm excited to hear this.
Wow.
Okay.
All right, Josh, where can people find you and Victims and Villains?
Hot dog. You guys can follow me. I'm most active on Letterboxd at Captain Nostalgia. Follow me on TikTok at Gent Ghostface, GENT. And you guys can follow Victims and Villains. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and wherever you guys get your podcasts, along with our other shows like Abyss Gazing, a horror podcast, and Animind, an anime podcast.
And potentially coming soon, a Marvel-themed podcast hosted by yours truly.
Oh, wow.
Potentially.
May or may not happen. You can find You Have to Watch This podcast on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcast. You can also check out all the other Rum Runners podcasts on rumrunnerspodcastnetwork.com. Until next time, for You Have to Watch This podcast, I want to thank Captain Nostalgia himself for joining us and paying tribute to the late Jason David Frank. And once again, Giving Tuesday, please donate if you can to Victims and Villains. For You Have to Watch This podcast, I'm Alan.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Devin.
And that is us shifting